Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ambassador AFM Kausal Sarkar, Chairman BIISS, Major General Sheikh Pasha Habibuddin, OSP, SGP, BAMS, AFWC, PSC, Director General BIISS, distinguished speakers, faculties of BIISS, learned guests, ladies and gentlemen present. Assalamu alaikum and a very good day. I, Muhammad Rafid Abrar Mia, on behalf of the Bangladesh Institute of International and Strategic Studies, welcome you all at today's seminar on the Rohingya crisis, contemporary security dimensions, and future repatriation process, which is indeed a well-talked issue of recent time. Today, we are very much honored to have His Excellency Ambassador Masud bin Momen, Foreign Secretary, Senior Secretary, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, as the chief guest. We are also delighted to have Major General Retired MD Naim Ashfaq Chaudhary, SBP, OSP, SUP, PSC, PhD, Security Analyst, Professor Imtiaz A. Hussain from the Department of Global Studies and Governance, Independent University, Bangladesh, and Mr. Jahan Shoaib, Research Fellow of BIISS, as the speakers of this seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now request the chair of the session, Ambassador AFM Gausul Azam Sarkar, sir, to kindly commence the program. Thank you.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Your Excellency, Ambassador Masud bin Momen, Foreign Secretary, Senior Secretary, Government of Bangladesh, colleague Major General Sheikh Pasha Habibuddin, OSP, SGP, BAMS, AFWC, PSC, Director General BIISS, Major General Retired Muhammad Naim Ashfaq Chaudhary, SBP, OSP, SUP, PSC, Professor Imtiaz A. Hussain, PhD, Department of Global Studies and Governance, Independent University, Bangladesh, members of the Diplomatic Corps. Among them, I particularly recognize His Excellency the Ambassador of China to Bangladesh, distinguished representatives from different ministries and departments of the government, learned guests, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum, and good afternoon. It's indeed a pleasure to have you in this seminar on the theme, the Rohingya crisis, contemporary security dimensions, and future of repatriation process. We are honored with the kind presence of the Foreign Secretary, Senior Secretary, as our honorable chief guest today. Also, we are delighted to have two distinguished experts on the subject who are going to speak and make their presentation, Major General Retired Muhammad Naim Ashfaq Chaudhary and Professor Imtiaz A. Hussain, and also a third presenter from BIISS, Muhammad Jahan Shoaib. As we all see from the theme here, particular lights will be shed on two strands of the problem being discussed today. One is security dimensions, and the other is repatriation process of the forcibly displaced Myanmar nationals, FDMN. Both deserve extensive discussions, but since we have time limitation, we are perhaps going to the broad lines. The interlinked issues of security and repatriation again concern both Myanmar and Bangladesh primarily, and also other stakeholders. Our program now will start with the welcome address by the Director General BIISS, And after that, we will listen to the three presentations. And that will be followed by a session of open discussion and comments from the distinguished participants. And then we will request our honorable chief guest to deliver his speech. And then at the end, I'll be making a concluding remarks. And we will close the session. So now it's my pleasure to request Director General BIISS to make his welcome address. General Pasha, please.
Thank you, sir. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Respected Chair of the session, Ambassador Gausul Azam Sarkar, Honorable Chief Guest, His Excellency Ambassador Masud bin Momen, Foreign Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh, distinguished panelists, His Excellency, the Ambassador of China to Bangladesh, learned guests, dear audience, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamu alaikum and a very good afternoon to you all. On behalf of BIISS, I welcome you all to today's seminar on the Rohingya crisis, contemporary security dimensions, and future of the repatriation process. At the outset, I would like to pay my deepest homage to the memory of the father of the nation, Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, and the million of martyrs who sacrificed their lives during our liberation war in 1971. My sincere gratitude to the Honorable Chief Guest, His Excellency Ambassador Masud bin Momen, for gracing the event with his kind presence. I sincerely thank our two distinguished presenters, Major General Naeem and Professor Imtiaz Hossain, as they have agreed to share their valuable insights and wisdom with us. Ladies and gentlemen, in 2017, the world witnessed one of the largest forced migration in shortest possible time in the human history, as Myanmar orchestrated an unprecedented exodus of Rohingyas from its Rakhine state. The helpless Rohingyas faced worst forms of violence owing to their religion and race, which was termed as the textbook example of ethnic cleansing by the United Nations. Consequently, as immediate neighbor, Bangladesh had to bear the burden of hosting over 1.1 million forcibly displaced population in its territory. This humanitarian crisis has undoubtedly posed a multifaceted challenge for Bangladesh and the entire region. To resolve the crisis for greater security and stability in the region, safe, secured, dignified, and sustainable repatriation is the only solution to this enduring humanitarian crisis. However, Ukraine war, the Palestine conflict, great power competition in the Indo-Pacific region, and the geopolitics in the Bay of Bengal are putting the Rohingyas issue in the back burner. As global attention is declining, funds for international humanitarian support for the Rohingyas are also gradually receding. Consequently, Rohingya crisis is putting enormous strain on Bangladesh's economy amid the current global economic slowdown. Distinguished guests, the contemporary security dimensions of the protected crisis have created enormous challenge, not only within our borders, but for the whole region itself. The violence and displacement have caused immeasurable human sufferings, as well as created sources for instability and insecurity in the region. The situation in Myanmar has also significantly changed due to the military coup, and the escalating civil war is posing a spillover effect on the neighboring countries, as well as affected the repatriation process. Consequently, there is a growing apprehension that the desperation and frustration of the displaced population can potentially be exploited by the radical groups. Rising transnational and cross-border crime is another major concern for regional security. In addition to a humanitarian crisis, it is a security concern that demands a collective, comprehensive, and collaborative response. Dear participants, Bangladesh continued its negotiation with Myanmar and keen to engage regional and global stakeholders. Although Myanmar engages itself in repatriation negotiation, a sustainable repatriation requires a strong political will from the Myanmar Authority. As is evident from the comments of a Myanmar delegation member during a working group meeting, the repatriation is not very high in the agenda of Myanmar, as they face numerous other challenges too. The international community must therefore actively engage Myanmar to facilitate the repatriation process. In addressing the ongoing Rohingya crisis, there are several pivotal issues that must be considered for the repatriation. The first set of issues revolves around the immediate and necessary steps for repatriation, including the security assurance and access to essential services. These aspects are fundamental for creating a conducive environment in which the Rohingya population can return safely and lead a dignified life there. The second set of issues delves into the longer-term aspects of sustainability, emphasizing the importance of access to livelihoods, education, food security, and a clear pathway to full citizenship. Efforts are needed to address these issues comprehensively, as they are interlinked and essential for the successful reintegration. It is crucial that we work together with international organizations and regional partners to navigate these challenges, ensuring the protection of rights and the well-being of the Rohingya population in their homeland. Once again, my heartfelt thanks to the Honorable Chief Guest, distinguished presenters, and the learned audience for being here with us today. I believe this event will trigger an insightful discussion to make the effort a success. Thank you very much. Jai Bangla.
Thank you, General Pasha, for your welcome address and setting the tone of the seminar today. The repatriation process that we are dealing with in this seminar is of critical importance because we see it as the only answer to the question of, to the problem of the Rohingya FDMN. Because the problem was created in Myanmar, and the answer to that, solution to that, has to be found in Myanmar as well. We understand that there are many questions that arise as to how and when and in what manner and phase, under what factors the repatriation is going to happen. I hope the seminar and the distinguished experts and participants will make contribution and strive to address, give light on such questions. So now we are going to listen to the first presentation given by Mohammad Jahan Shoaib. Jahan Shoaib, please.
Honorable Chief Guest of today's seminar, His Excellency Ambassador Masud bin Momen, Foreign Secretary, Senior Secretary, Government of People's Republic of Bangladesh, respected Chairman and Director General of BISS, distinguished audience, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Today, I shall make my presentation on the Rohingya crisis and overview. So first question, who are the Rohingyas? This is a big question in a sense that they are not national of any country. And considering their plights, the UN Secretary General mentioned that the Rohingyas are one of, if not the most discriminated people in the world. And the Rohingya are one of Myanmar's ethnic minority groups. They have faced severe human rights violations back to Myanmar. They have faced ethnic, like humanitarian crisis, like war, genocide, and different types of tortures. And their main problem, as I mentioned, that they are stateless. Even the Myanmar authorities sometimes deny to address them as Rohingyas. And as Bangladesh is also not signatory of the 1951 Refugee Convention and its additional protocol 1967, Bangladesh also doesn't term them as refugees. So they are often termed as forcibly displaced Myanmar nationals. The first instance of Rohingyas exodus to Bangladesh started from 1977 to 1978. However, the unprecedented incident occurred in 2017 when like more than 700,000 Rohingyas entered into Bangladesh, being uprooted from their homeland. So now the Rohingyas splitted over to different countries, including Bangladesh, Thailand, Philippines, Malaysia, Indonesia, Gambia, India, and the USA. And Bangladesh currently now hosting more than 1.2 million Rohingyas in its land. And every year they are adding up to 30,000 new babies. So if we go through the timelines, we can see that in the 1962, military rule became the norm in Myanmar. And subsequently, the Buddhists got the upper hand in that country, and the Muslims became like the second tier population. And in the 1978, Myanmar started, the junta rulers started the Operation Nagamin Dragon, and that uprooted 200,000 Rohingyas, and they entered into Bangladesh. And there was a 1982, the Citizenship Act, and that citizenship law also excluded Rohingyas from being citizen of that country. And they become deprived of their basic needs. And in 1991, over 250,000 Rohingyas from Rakhine State took shelter in Bangladesh. However, from 1993 to 1997, more than 250,000 Rohingyas were repatriated back in Myanmar from different efforts from Bangladesh and international community. However, the official census conducted in Myanmar in 2015. In that, and the democratic election was also held in the same year. However, the Rohingyas were excluded from both events. And in 2017, the global community witnessed a massive exodus of Rohingyas to Bangladesh. And in 2018, the government of Bangladesh sheltered 781,000 Rohingyas and gave them amenities to reside in its lands. So what happened after Rohingyas intrusion or Rohingyas entrance into Bangladesh? they have, as the Director General sir mentioned, that heavily strained on the resources available for Bangladesh, particularly the host community faced the biggest trouble from the Rohingyas exodus. They, in some places, have to sacrifice their some rights and some amenities due to the Rohingyas' presence in the land. And we all know that the presence of salinity in that part of the country, and the groundwater is very much scarce. However, due to the huge pressure of like more than 1 million displaced people, the fresh water availability became another challenge for the region. And also the Rohingyas exodus had a very negative impact on the price list of commodities, of everyday commodities. And then the local people faced the most challenges. And due to the Rohingya settlement, like 5,000 acres of forest lands were destroyed and that were cut down, and the shelters were created. And due to the presence of Rohingyas, the wage rates also reduced. And that's why the local people sometimes took attempts to take the risky jobs that were not conventional jobs. They were forced to take risky jobs. For example, if a normal job requires 500 taka, then a Rohingya people can take the job easily for 100 taka. So that undervalues or that diminishes the existing price. So the local people has to resort to like risky jobs. And also this also poses challenges to the healthcare, and the Rohingyas presence also increased gender-based violence in that part. So what Bangladesh did for the Rohingyas, as it can be mentioned that only from the humanitarian ground, Bangladesh gave shelter to the Rohingyas in its land, although the country is not, as I mentioned, the signatory of the Refugee Convention. And the country also has to spend every year more than $8 billion for like providing law and order situation, for the law and order situation, and filling the gaps of the funding. And the government also has taken initiatives to relocate relocate 100,000 Rohingyas to Bhasanchar, and has created necessary infrastructures for their settlement. And the government of Bangladesh also has been engaging different actors, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been taking the leading role in that effort. The government of Bangladesh has taken the tripartite initiatives with China, and also approached Russia to resolve the process. And however, we have seen that there's, due to regional, international, and geopolitical interests, we didn't find much positive output from the efforts of the regional and international actors. Unfortunately, humanitarian crises were seen through a geopolitical and economic lens, so that undermines the humanitarian needs and burdens of Bangladesh. However, some countries also have been played a crucial role. However, some veto-wielding countries repeatedly opposed any kind of passing resolution in the United Nations against Myanmar, so that was not successful. However, a small country like Gambia launched a case, filed a case against Myanmar in the International Court of Justice. However, in 2019, the then Prime Minister of Myanmar, Aung San Suu Kyi, denied any kind of allegation of crimes against humanity or genocide. However, in 2020, the ICJ asked the Myanmar government to stop any kind of inhuman activities against the Rohingyas. So as the Rohingyas have been staying for a long time, this has been taking a big toll on Bangladesh. So there are some challenges evolving in that part of the world. The Rohingyas are becoming frustrated day by day, particularly after the 2021 military coup. They see least hope to be repatriated back to their homeland. So this has put enormous burden on Bangladesh. Already the country is densely populated, and the country is also like trying to graduate, has been graduated from LDC to middle income country. So this has an impact in its economy, and also the country's plan of SDG has been some sort of hampered due to their presence, and this is a challenge for Bangladesh. And this has also a social and demographic effects on Bangladesh. And the Rohingyas can be exploited, and the different types of transnational groups can exploit the Rohingyas in different illegal activities. That is a challenge, and that can destabilize the regional and global security situation as well as Bangladesh. And can be mentioned that fund crisis is a big challenge. Day by day, the donors' fatigue can be mentioned, that they are not giving the promised funds. That is posing another challenge for Bangladesh to host the Rohingyas. So if we can see that the funding of shortfall, it started from 27% in 2017, and now we can see that in 2022, the funding was like less than 50%. So that is a big challenge. And like some major global events like the COVID-19 pandemic and the Russo-Ukrainian war, and like the latest, the Israel-Palestinian conflict that have taken some sort of sight of the global community from the Rohingyas. So the funding has become a major challenge for Bangladesh to meet the demands of the Rohingyas. So this is a big issue. So what are the possible solutions? So there may be two types of solutions, like third country settlement and repatriation. Some countries have shown their interest to take like few hundred Rohingyas, not even thousands. So this is not a viable solution or viable option to Bangladesh. And as very few numbers have been given the proposal to be allocated, that might force, or that might work as a pull factor, and more Rohingyas can also can cross the border, risking their lives, and also voluntarily the Myanmar authority also can take the opportunity. So the repatriation and safe, dignified, sustainable, and voluntary repatriation is the key. And for that, a congenial environment is required. Myanmar has to create the environment that is friendly to the Rohingyas, the Rakhine people, and the authority, the Buddhist community needs to have more friendly, or like the situation that can coexist with the Rohingyas. So the Bangladesh government's topmost priority is to repatriation, and here needs a concerted international efforts. Both regional and global actors need to work combinedly to repatriate the Rohingyas. So what is the current state of the repatriation process? So there was a formation of Bangladesh-Myanmar working group for the repatriation after their exodus in Bangladesh in 2017. And then there was a repatriation deal in 2017, but in 2023, this year marked the 6th anniversary of the mass expulsion of the Rohingyas. However, in 6 years, we didn't witness a single repatriation from Bangladesh to Myanmar. And like the pilot project also didn't work. Attempts were taken in 2018 and 2019 to repatriate them, but those were not successful. And in 2023, the pilot project were supposed to start, but that also didn't start due to like mainly due to the unwillingness for the Myanmar authority. So there is no explicit guarantee of citizenship and freedom of movement for the Rohingyas yet, and logically no tangible progress have been witnessed. So in conclusion, it can be said that due steps and the concerted efforts of the international community is required, and the Rohingyas is a vicious cycle in regional geopolitics and global geopolitics. So the regional and global powers need to understand the humanitarian ground and the burden of Bangladesh on hosting the Rohingyas. That is very much important. And first of all, and the most necessary thing is the cooperation from Myanmar side is necessary. Without Myanmar's cooperation, any kind of repatriation won't be possible. So Myanmar needs to come with good gesture, and for that robust regional and international efforts, along with Bangladesh's diplomatic endeavors, can make it success. So with no viable solution in near future, there is a risk of major conflict that also cannot be discarded, and that needs to address some core problems like creating congenial environments and also providing them citizenship and assuring them for like their basic rights and their peaceful and secured life in Myanmar can also motivate the Rohingyas to go back to their homeland. So these necessary ingredients are important for a successful and voluntary repatriation. That's all from my side. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jahan Shoaib, for giving an overview of the Rohingya crisis, its evolution, and also different stages of the problem, and your emphasis at the end of the repatriation and the factors related to that. Now we are going to listen to the second expert making his presentation. Major General retired Muhammad Naim Ashfaq Chaudhry. He is focusing on the contemporary security dimensions. Sir, please.
Respected Chief Guest, His Excellency Ambassador Masud bin Momen, Senior Secretary, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Today's Chairman BISS, Director General BISS, Ambassador of China to Bangladesh, Your Excellency, esteemed audience, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. The Rohingya issue being one of the most important national crises demands iterated discussion, evaluation, and adjustment of strategy and course of action. In that count, today's session no doubt bears huge significance. My previous speakers
have given an overview of the whole Rohingya crisis. I'll be covering only the security dimension of the issue. The Rohingya issue is no more a mono-string crisis. It is a multidimensional and complex affair having deep involvement of multi-stakeholders. The security dimension is also multi-pronged, having strings all along the strategic level to the tactical level. Bangladesh is bearing the fullest impact of Rohingya crisis in all possible sectors, including security. The civil administration, law enforcement agencies, people's representative, and other stakeholders are working day and night to contain the multi-pronged challenges emanating from Rohingya concentration at Cox's Bazar. The existing administrative and security arrangement cannot be considered permanent, nor can it be taken as infallible. We must keep it in mind that it is a concentration of a despaired, traumatized population, seeing no light of hope shortly, living in a dense and dire living condition. We cannot expect much from a battered, uneducated, and frustrated population having no effective leadership. So the security challenges emanating from Rohingya are likely to be more diverse, volatile, and complex. As we all know, the spectrum of security is dynamic and changes with the actors' and stakeholders' circumstances and actions. It becomes further complex if the stakeholders' number is more and their involvement is deep. The Rohingya crisis is again intensely connected to the geostrategic dynamics of the Indo-Pacific region and particularly the global south. We all are aware of the geo-economic interest of China in Myanmar and its link to BRI, China-Myanmar Economic Corridor, and access to the Bay of Bengal, besides access to the untapped resources of Myanmar. On the other hand, the US-led Quad will continue its strategic, economic, and even military moves to contain China against its expansionist initiatives. This power rivalry between the global and regional powers is less likely to diminish, let alone end. Rather, the economic enrichment of East and South Asian countries, this is expected to rise. The security situation in Myanmar is deteriorating day by day. Myanmar's periphery has been marked by decades of conflict between the military and a plethora of ethnic armies that continue to fuel violence. As per a BBC report, 3 ethnic insurgent armies, they call it 3 Brotherhood Alliance or 3BHA in Shan state, namely the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, the Thang National Liberation Army, and the Arakan Army, launched a military operation, they called it Operation 1027, in late October 2023, and have overrun military posts and captured border crossing and the roads carrying most of the overland trade with China. By the end of 11 November 2023, the 3BHA claimed to have captured a total of 168 army posts across the region. It is the most serious setback suffered by the junta since it seized power in February 2021. The Tatmadaw has responded with airstrikes and artillery bombardment, which have compelled approximately 48,000 people to leave their homes. An important aspect of this operation is that the government force was unable to bring in reinforcement or recover the ground it had lost. Hundreds of troops were killed, including one of the senior commander of government forces named Brigadier General Ong Kyo Lin in northern Shan state. What makes this attack even more significant is that for the first time, armed insurgents operating in Shan state have explicitly aligned themselves to overthrow the junta and restore democratic rule. And crucially, China, which normally acts as restraining influence on the groups along its border with Myanmar, has not prevented this operation from going ahead. Cybercrime and human trafficking are rampant in Shan and Wa state with the involvement of Chinese nationals. The early successes of the alliance campaign have encouraged resistance forces elsewhere in the country. Even before Operation 1027, the Junta State Administration Council admitted that at least 132 out of 330 townships were beyond its control and imposed martial law on at least 44 townships across 9 states and regions. Back in 2021, when the military and police violently crushed peaceful protests against the coup, opposition activists decided they had no choice but to call for a nationwide armed uprising against the junta. Wa state is controlled by the United Wa State Army, one of the Myanmar's largest ethnic armed group. In the region of Sagaing, near the city of Mandalay, pro-democracy group for the first time retook 2 townships that were under the control of the military. The Kachin Independent Army seized control of 2 military installations last month, where they faced a barrage of airstrike and artillery fire from Myanmar Tatmadaw. About 40,000 people have been displaced in Sagaing region and Kachin state. Remember, an unstable Myanmar is certainly a security threat for Bangladesh in the form of further influx of Rohingya, drug or arms trafficking, border security, and opening to East Asia and economic activities. There is another security concern that is emerging from Myanmar is narco-terrorism. Myanmar is one of the territories within the infamous Golden Triangle where illicit opium production occurs. Opium production in Afghanistan has significantly declined in 2022 as the authority has imposed a ban on opium cultivation. Myanmar, which was the world's second biggest producer of heroin, surpassed Afghanistan. The farmers of Myanmar devote more land to growing poppies amid economic turmoil and disruption. The military, which is in power following the coup in February 2021, is neither willing nor capable of launching a war on opium cultivation and the rapidly growing production of synthetic drugs. In a plummeting economy, coupled with a wide range of sanctions by Western countries, followed by investors' exit, there are strong allegations of linking the military's top brass with the drug syndicates to profit from the multi-billion-dollar trade. Drug exports generate $1 to $2 billion annually. Some of the ethnic armed organizations are also allegedly involved in the production and smuggling of drugs as it is more profitable and can earn quick money. In Shan state, 49% of households in the villages cultivate opium poppy. The farmers are forced to grow poppy as Tatmadaw issues heavy taxes on the traditional crops. The regional countries and the world need to worry about wide-scale poverty, poor governance, conflict-stricken territory, and the plummeting economy of Myanmar, creating a conducive environment for drug production and trafficking. Drugs are being trafficked to countries like China, Thailand, India, Laos, Bangladesh, Vietnam, Indonesia, Malaysia, Brunei Darussalam, South Korea, Cambodia, etc. I would like to highlight another security concern of this region. There is the rise of Kukichin National Front, an armed group in Bangladesh, and its potential to be connected with the same ethnicity armed group living in Mizoram of India and Chin state of Myanmar. The KNF first surfaced in Bandarban in October 2022. So far, 16 people, including 3 military personnel, have been killed in an armed conflict against KNF. Bangladesh Army launched massive combing operations throughout the region. And on 5th November 2023, Kukichin sat with the government and the security forces for peace talk and agreed on a ceasefire until 20 December 2023. It is alleged that the KNF is providing training to an Islamist group. The proximity of Rohingya camp poses a potential threat of a connection between the KNF and Rohingya, which endangers the security architecture of this region. Under the current situation, immediate Rohingya repatriation appears to be dim and distant. A coordinated internal and external pressure might help to compel the Myanmar military junta to change their stubborn attitude of not taking back Rohingya. With that, I will go to the recommendations. Contain Rohingya within their camps and monitor them constantly with adequate security and intelligence arrangement. Take adequate measures to address the spillover effect of narco-terrorism in Myanmar. Take appropriate measures to defuse the rise of KNF and its possibility of connections with Rohingya. Encourage Rohingya leadership to grow and use them effectively to contain illegal and unlawful activities by Rohingya, including guidance for their future generation. Continue supporting the repatriation initiative by China, though the number proposed repatriation is insignificant. Continue iterating the issue at every possible platforms. Provide all possible support to Gambia for the trial in ICJ. Continue effective diplomatic efforts to ensure continued support for the Rohingyas in Bangladesh. Based on the current unstable political and security situation in Myanmar, provide all sorts of support to the initiative by international community who are voicing Myanmar's crime against humanity to bring back democracy in Myanmar. The Rohingya issue is one of the most critical and complex national issues. The government may consider forming a national commission to deal with the affairs appropriately. Thank you so much for your kind and patience here.
Thank you, General Chaudhary, for your very insightful and elaborate presentation of the complexity of the security landscape involved. And you have really, like an expert, shed light on the implications of these developments in Myanmar. And the implications are not only for Myanmar itself, but also the countries all around, including Bangladesh. And the countries of the region have to take note of these. And also these have a connection with the problem and the immediate subject that we are dealing with, repatriation. So thank you particularly for your recommendatory part for making a number of suggestions. Thank you indeed. So we are going to listen to the third presenter, Professor Imtiaz Hussain. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Your Excellency, Ambassador Masud bin Momen, Foreign Secretary, my respectable, honorable Chairman and Director General, BIS, and whole fleet of BIS, very thriving community of intellectuals, Major General Asfar, fellow panelists, distinguished guests, particularly Ambassador from China, Your Excellency, welcome. Fleet of ambassadors
welcome, and of course, my colleagues in academia, as well as the future generation of students picking up hopefully what we might shed light on today. Thank you for having me here. And I just have a few comments, and I might say at the outset, much of my materials has been taken already. But still, let me go ahead. The question of investigation is repatriation. How do we do it? Of course, the first thing we look at, if we can move to the next page, when we look at repatriation, we really must look at two sets of forces, the endogenous inside, that is, and the exogenous. And I'm so happy that especially the security was very effectively handled by Major General Ashfaq. But inside, we must take a look at what's happening to build our case for repatriation. And unless we do that, it will be tough. And I cannot look at every factors. The most important will be security. If I can go to the next page, please. When it comes to security, a lot of the materials here have been spoken about, and I really appreciate it. You make my work simpler, but we can break security down in many different dimensions. I think the most important ones are the ones right up here. We have the political. We certainly will look at the economic. There is mostly also environmental and social. I did not put in food security. I think that can be absorbed, but it is a consideration. It is a factor. And I think with a number of forest fires and people being killed inside the camps, for example, this year, 48 plus, my figures probably are from August. Last year, all of last year, we had about 40 people killed within. So there are groups and infighting, and of course, many of them have affiliation in Myanmar. I think we've all heard of the groups involved in Myanmar, and they're also taking many different angles. It's not just the fighting between the groups inside, but also we will have penetration of Islamic and then drug trafficking. All of these enter the picture to complicate the political setting. And to add to that, we have also lots of arson fire. And these fires, not only created by them, but the way the shanties are made in the camp, they have no windows. And that itself accumulates smoke. So it's a grenade waiting to explode at any time, if not taken care of effectively. So therefore, we must be careful of how to handle all of that. And of course, with almost 1 million refugees, add to that the 300,000 that came before 2017, and many of them have slowly moved towards assimilation into Bangladesh, into society, and therefore they can open up loopholes through which present-day camps residents can escape and come out, as quite a few are doing already, if anecdotal evidence is reflecting reality effectively. We can then move on to the second set, which is economic security. And here, not much to be said, because I think the figures were given, much more polished figures. We are not getting enough that we need. We need something close to 1 billion every year just to look after the refugees we already have. And we are barely getting quarter of that committed. And by pushing that, we can probably increase it, but increasingly our own resources are being depleted. We cannot continue that, especially that was also a pandemic and the post-pandemic inflation. All of these are hitting us at the same time that we must be careful about, and how some of these explode, it's only a question of time, which is why my title was It's Now or Never, because these cinders are just ready to burst. We can move on to the environment, which is the one that we must pay more attention to. And here, for example, we are losing a lot of land, not just by people chopping them off for wood, for fuel, but that itself creates erosion. And especially in monsoon, we are not going to be able to protect much. That segment of the camps are expanding. At a time when we don't have much, it is also having indirect effect on local communities, how they handle it and how they can see some of their opportunities getting lost in the cinders is again, an issue of concern. And finally, social. Again, I don't want to get into the depths of it. There's a lot to be said here. But for example, we have almost half of the refugees are children. And if parents here certainly will know, if you have children and they're not taught when they're first, second, or third year, it's quite unlikely they will have any training for the future. And that is what is happening. Up to 50,000 children are being born and living there, growing up, and that these shed and shape instincts. It's not institutions or interest, but the instincts. Those instincts stay the whole life. That means we have generations of future possibilities disappearing, living in the camp. If I can go on to the next page, how do we handle all of these? Again, if you look at the outside, the exogenous, some of this has also been touched. We can look at different levels of analysis. And the different levels of analysis can be treated, I think, in terms of relevance, importance. I picked international first because without international support, we are not going to be able to make it on our own. And so here, I think the ICJ picking up last year, February, the Gambia complaint, genocide, and ruling upon that, 4 of the rules, 3 of the rulings were completely unanimous, and one of them was a 14-1 censure of Myanmar. And I think this year they're going to be making the final determination, the ruling. We must wait for that, but we must also prepare what to do, whatever the result might be. I'm not so much a diplomat to know all the details of what's going on. Much of this is going on I think, privately. But from what we can sense from the outside, there's a lot going on that must be addressed. Internationally, I think I also heard of the United Nations arranging a meeting between the Myanmar officials and ours, whereby the plan was to bring some over in Teknaf and take them, see the camp, and begin negotiations that way. So February 2023 set the ball rolling towards some kind of an accommodation. And we all know no accommodation is possible without repatriation, such is the explosive nature of life in the camps. Then we can just look at some of the bilateral deals. Again, a lot of these are going on privately. Negotiations are almost always done in private if they are to succeed. And of course, China, India, Japan, in alphabetical order, they have been, we have approached them quite a few times. And I do know that through China, we had the Kunmon meeting. I think our, Your Excellency, the Foreign Secretary was there himself. Maybe he can say something about the Kunmon. I think it was in May, in which some kind of a rough agreement was made whereby China might step in and help us out. This is the repatriation that is working. At least over the year, 1,100 were taken. They really wanted to go, so they were eager to visit. Yet they were stumped by the military in Myanmar. They couldn't muster up the confidence to go back. And so we are left with their, I think, bad memories of that. How we overcome that requires a lot of delicate handling. And likewise, I think Japan, India, they've all been invested. The investments are not paying off simply because of the civil war you just heard. These are delaying the output of those infrastructural projects and the economic corridors. So they are also getting a little restless with Myanmar. And this also might be helping us now. It was not so important before. Now it is. It might get even stronger as time goes by. And therefore, it might get stronger, but other things might explode before, trumping the diplomatic efforts. Similarly, with the regional, or you might call it plurilateral, multilateral, whichever way you look at it, I think the key one for us is ASEAN. And for us, ASEAN is awfully important for many other reasons. It is not just the Rohingya refugee issue, but we are negotiating very seriously and very, I think, sincerely for free trade agreements. And the climate for those kinds of negotiations really improves if we can get something here, and repatriation might be one of those things that might help us in those negotiations. And of course, I think I've covered the important points here. Please, the next page. And so, so from all of that, what does the future predict for us? Again, we can look at it level by level analysis. And if we do, we're going to find basically this year is going to be so pivotal in the sense that many of the burning fires are going to have some kind of a conclusion in front of our eyes. We cannot wait. The only thing that can wait is negotiating, which is imperative. But at the same time, what's happening inside the civil war inside Myanmar, and then restlessness building up, I would like to say multiplying. The visit we made in February to the camp, Ukia, the same people we talked to later in the year, we found a lot more kind of a restlessness and a determination to do something moving in a negative direction, as opposed to in February, when we saw an element of hope, a positive element among the teenagers. And therefore, it does matter how we handle them. It's also happening because right now, this year, the whole global South has been given such an impetus. It's not just that what happened in Johannesburg to the BRICS and the addition of 11 more members and Bangladesh waiting for the next round, but it is also the G20, which essentially the richest club in the world, making global South the top issue. I think these are issues that do have, if not the punch that military alliances like the Quad might have, they do carry some weight, especially now, which is very different from the Bandung Conference era of the 50s and 60s, when non-alignment lacked that punch that we need, and we probably have now. And similarly, if you look at some of our takeaways, I think there are lots of elements here that we need to be careful about. And I think we need to push more negotiations, yet forceful negotiations. We have to be a lot more, have a plan B, plan C for almost every alternative, every policy option of all the stakeholders. And then let's see where that takes us. And in the meantime, we must negotiate. We cannot side with any bloc, whether it is the India's Act East, or whether it is the United States IPS, whether it is China's BRI. I think there's something in all of them appealing to us. How do we navigate our way through them? That is the art of diplomacy that I'm praising the next generation here for. If that's not the last page, I think then I'm done. Oh, but this is the same thing. Again, you're looking at Bhashan Char. I have not said anything, but Bhashan Char is a kind of a semi kind of a assimilation. And it is something that from the figures I had midway through the year, 75,000, more than half of them are children. So education has to play a big part in it. And if it's education, is it the Myanmar curriculum or ours? Their future is at stake. And do you want them to be facing anomie inside the country or on the border? We need to be careful. We need to make some plans. And it could be that perhaps selective freedom for some of the camps might ease that pressure. It's not something I recommend, but we have to do something to release the pressure in that pressure cooker in Ukhia and other camps. And like that, I think some of these items I have mentioned in the previous page, internationally and regionally, we have to opt for quid pro quo positions, not sine qua non. Sine qua non would be something like this or nothing else. And so how do we fluctuate? We might not like the end product, but it is probably going to be better than what we had before. So let's think about it, and we need to navigate out of it. Help us do so. Thank you so much, and thank you, my distinguished colleagues.
Thank you so much, Professor Imtiaz Sen, for your excellent and very insightful remarks. And you have made some very emphatic points and analyzed the situation and also the aspects of repatriation. And thank you indeed for your kind suggestions. So now we are coming to the part of open discussion. And here we'll be opening the floor and requesting you for your interventions. You can make comments and also make questions. Those who are participating online, they can also make questions online. And what I would request for is for you to be kindly very brief and precise. And at the beginning, please introduce yourselves. And if you have questions, please directly go to your point without making any introduction, because we know the context. The floor is open. Yes, I see the interest of Ambassador Mohammad Hannan, Abdul Hannan. Please.
Thank you, Chair. And it is I'm truly, I should say, mesmerized seeing the intellectual presentation of three presenters. And it covered almost everything. So if I may pinpoint the security considerations plus the situation of Bangladesh, like a catch-22 situation, Professor Imtiaz mentioned about the trust deficit of the Rohingyas. There are bilateral, trilateral, plurilateral, multilateral, all mechanisms are available because Foreign Office has given the utmost priority to repatriate the Rohingyas to their own motherland. But now the trust deficit is definitely a very important factor, even a smaller scale repatriation starts. What Professor Imtiaz mentioned, repatriation now or never. This is a very critical situation. We need to be very serious. Given the global geopolitical situation, now the attention is focused and the global attention diverted to Israel intervention in Gaza. So earlier it was Ukraine war. So one after another situation evolving. So the thing seems to be strategically multidimensional and complex. So in this scenario, we need to understand more how quick we can start the process. And I believe that China is the most important pillar, global pillar, along with India, as the other party in the region, because the US pivot is Asia. So I personally consider there is no solution unless China and India, get a serious focus on that issue. It is not the problem of Bangladesh's security challenge. It will ignite ultimately the way Major General presented his security dimensions and the multiplicity, complexity. So it is a very difficult scenario. So I would like to hear from panelists or even the Senior Secretary of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Masood bin Momen, to kindly reflect on where are we in the context of the present global focus on Middle East vis-a-vis our Rohingya crisis. Thank you.
Let us take some more comments and some questions. Then in cluster, there could be response. So anybody else? Yes, you have three persons. Okay, first from you, and then the lady, and then from you. First you, and then the lady. And then
Thank you very much, sir. I'm Dr. Zahid Khan. My current affiliation is American International University, and I'm also affiliated with the University of Reading, United Kingdom. So this is a particular area of my interest as a reader of politics and international relations. I think the fundamental question here that we are trying to address is how can we change the status quo that continues to exist to sort of in our favor? That is the main area. But I would, the brilliant presentation, but I would try to, based on whatever I have read as a reader and also as a researcher, my comments is just my own, not reflecting my institutions. I will come to very specific points which relates to a whole of government approach for addressing this issue so that we can change the status quo that continues to exist. The first one is that we need to understand, our position has been always that we'll solve it diplomatically. But the diplomatic tool has to be understood that diplomacy is defined in a way that it's a velvet glove under an iron fist. I think the presentation by Professor Imtiaz highlighted some aspect that he was telling the hard power is missing. In one of your slides, it was there. So I think maybe not missing, but maybe less explored. So a visible demonstration for in the current context, what is happening in Shan State, where Just day before yesterday, martial law was declared. China has expressed concern. We can think of doubling some assets, infrastructure in that area from a defensive point of view, particularly, for example, increasing the number of helipads that we have along the border with night flying facilities, sensors, deployment of other equipments. That would be strengthening the iron fist under the of the velvet glove. The other important thing, and I think this is currently the context what is going on in Shan State is a perfect one for us to explore on this avenue. The second thing is about diplomacy. I think we often talk about our strategic autonomy that we want to exercise. We need to find out and send a mechanism to signal that if the regional players, and I'm being very careful in choosing my words here, if the regional key players are unable to address this issue, we are willing to exercise our strategic autonomy of engaging extra-regional powers. And the Burma Act, and I'm again careful, exploring the possibility of not embracing, but exploring the possibility of leveraging the Burma Act, which is passed in the United States Congress, could be one avenue that sends a strategic signal to the regional players to strengthen our position, because it is not correct that the United Nations Security Council hasn't passed any resolution on Myanmar. They have passed a resolution, but there were explicit abstention by 3 players. 2 of them are regional key players, and 1 is, of course, our neighbor. So that is one area of exercising and sending a signal that we are ready to exercise our strategic autonomy. Similarly, another point which can be explored is the bold declaration by the National Unity Government about the Rohingya policy. We are maintaining some bit of strategic ambiguity on this, what is our position. It is okay to maintain our diplomatic relations and a formal one with the junta, but if you read, which I do, Irrawaddy or the New Light of Myanmar or all the other Myanmar newspapers, you'll find that how is that portrayed in that domestic audience about Bangladesh's position, and which we may explore establishing candid, tacit, or covert connections on that front as well, signaling that on the interest of our national security and the regional, we are willing and we are exploring that path. So this is the second point. And the third, of course, Professor Imtiaz sir it's very good to see you once again, sir, after that, the previous meeting that we had. On the legal side, the ICC Special Prosecutor has visited Bangladesh a number of times. In one of my articles, which was published in Global Responsibility to Protect, Brill Journal, I sort of explored a possibility of establishing an international court of tribunal for Rohingyas, in line with the others, like whatever happened in Cambodia, Rwanda, and other places. That could be the next step after the ICG ruling, and signaling on that line could be. But to do that, we probably would be needing 3 things. First, it has to disassociate the state actor from the individual actor. So the target should be individual actor, and then also inside participation from the region and also from within the Myanmar CSOs, the civil society organizations. With that 3 cents, I end my comments, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, indeed. The floor goes to the lady. Yes.
Many thanks to give me the floor. Whatever I found with this is very simple. My comments that this the problems are problems of the Rohingyas now is the trafficking of drug and arms, and there's the bad deterioration of relationship with Burma, and various viruses, spreading many viruses. Our Prime Minister, when allowed these Rohingyas in our country, she did it in a humanitarian grounds, and we are many thanks to her. But this thanks is become to the cards in course of time. And she tried since 2017, but the result is very less because we could not involve our neighbors, especially the religion neighbors, especially China and India. Especially China is very powerful neighbor of us, Bangladesh, but we at the same time we realize that China has got some business relationship with Myanmar. Whatever it is, whatever with this now, we need to involve our effort is very, though it's very strong, but the result is very less. So the main thing I want to mean that the regional and the external involvement should be we should go for that. If we cannot involve them, we Bangladesh we ourselves, it will be very difficult to send them. Our Prime Minister is trying since 2017 for the dignified and sustainable repatriation, but it should be it will be implied, I think, because by this regional and international pressure, whatever we need to get that, we have to do that. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We take your comments as comments, and that is noted. And the floor goes to the gentleman here. Please introduce yourself, Professor Titumi, please.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Rashid Titumir. I work for the Department of Development Studies, University of Dhaka. Thank you for excellent presentations. We understand that the situation is because of an externality. And what is more important is to really understand the internality, both as a human bomb who are in the refugee camps, as well as the internality associated with the civil strife in Myanmar. But what is more important is to really look at why the junta is playing this zero-sum game. And particularly in terms of Bangladesh's case, what has been already described by the Major General Naim Ashfaq Chaudhary, which is quite critical. And secondly, we have not discussed it, but the misdevelopment that we are witnessing right now because of the connectivity which is required for Bangladesh to move in its aspiration to be the developed country, which is quite required because we need to move through Myanmar either to China or through Thailand to Malaysia to Indonesia, which is very critical. One has to really look at that in that scenario. And I'm sure there is a rethinking in terms of enhancing our diplomatic relationship with Myanmar in the sense, because 6 officers cannot do this. So that's quite important. How do we really engage ourselves in terms of because since 1970 with this diplomatic relationship with Myanmar, but we have never really focused on Myanmar in terms of our engagement. So that's a critical issue. So these two, and then how do we really look at our preparedness in the sense that there is a requirement of a form or a shape in terms of being defensive, meaning that there is a kind of a requirement for deterrence. Because it has been going, and the way it is shaping, it really requires a serious thinking on deterrence. And the second point that I would finish with, if China asserts that because of the historical reason that Burma was the first non-communist government and to recognize China, what is known as POC4 relationship, then what it is leveraging on? And that because of the Chinese aspiration and our aspiration, and with this great power, we have to really see the fruits and people have to believe in it. Secondly, obviously, which has been pointed out, India shares 1,600-kilometer border with Myanmar, and obviously they are the fourth largest export and the fifth largest import. So how would they really like to see? Because this continuous abstinence has not given a signal to the friendly people of Bangladesh. And that has become a big question mark in our understanding, particularly by the people at large. So how do we really get ourselves prepared, given the situation in Bandarban? Then obviously there are other tactics involving Feni fault line. So how do we address ourselves? That's quite critical, and I'm sure, and we won't like to miss our development through being connected through Myanmar, because that's what is really hampering on the aspiration and capability of Bangladesh itself. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you indeed, Professor Titomid. I see interest from the students in the left side. One of the students, please, from that corner, you have the floor. Yeah. Microphone is going. And after that, I will give the floor to a journalist.
Thank you, Chair.
So any student, because there are a lot of comments and questions, so it will be difficult to remember. So from the students, one is going to intervene. Thank you for making your questions precise. So I think so far we have a good number of questions. We can possibly come to the second round. Let our distinguished panelists make some answers. And as regards the chief guest, honorable chief guest, I think he is going to intervene as the chief guest of the program. So I think we can wait for his response while he speaks. Otherwise, it will be repetition of answers or comments. So to the panelists for the questions so far made. John Shred.
কমপ্লিমেন্ট করতে পারবেন।
Now, I'm not possibly the right person to answer all the questions. Because we have our chief guest, who is sitting on the helm of the affairs for a long, long time. And he is the right person to answer all the questions, even though I would try my level best to address some of the issues raised by some esteemed audience. So first of all, the question was, where are we standing in the context of global geopolitical scenario, where now Israel's intervention into Gaza taking place, and before that, Ukraine war was there, and the international focus is continuously changing. In that count, where are we standing, and how can we keep it vibrant and live? This issue in the international area. To my understanding, as I was telling in my presentation, that this is a multi-stakeholders affairs now. It is no more a bilateral issue, a multilateral, trilateral issues. This is a multi-stakeholders issue, and we have to engage all possible stakeholders in every possible platforms, international, regional, bilateral, trilateral, in every possible platforms we have to raise this issue. I would also like to thank the student who was telling that only few occasions we are talking about the Rohingya issue. No, it has to be iterated in multiple places. It has to be an active participation of all the stakeholders from Bangladesh and also from the regional and the global stakeholders. So considering this, the changing and dynamic global situation, I think that it is our role to keep it vibrant and take all possible measures to make it live. Say, for example, we have to have these issues raised everywhere because this time only 50% of the promised financial assistance that were given by international community. And these people, the Rohingya people, need to be survived. What to talk about their development. We can forget about that, at least for survival. What we are getting only 50%. So in changing global scenario, our role has to be to keep it vibrant through different kinds of platforms that we are using, the government of Bangladesh is using. Not only the government of Bangladesh, it is the role of every individual citizen of Bangladesh, every academia, media, and other agencies. Everybody has to raise this issue everywhere and every time. If I'm allowed to say about the second one, the security arrangement near the border between Bangladesh and Myanmar, yes, I do agree with that one. And also the veterans that was covered by some of the esteemed audience, we need to address that one also. We need to focus on that one also. We are not a belligerent country, not belligerent army, but should somebody try to come and explore this sector, we have to give that message to everyone, including our neighbors, that yes, we are a resilient nation, and we proved it through our division war in 1971, and if need be, we are going to reach in future also. Connectivity with NUG government, I do also believe that yes, through the military junta, as they are ruling the country now in Myanmar. Besides this, we should also have connections with NUG government with other international community so that the actions or the armed ethnic groups, whatever they are doing under the guidance of any government, we should also keep this engaged with the concerned authority. Regarding any clause of repatriation MOU, I think I'm not the person, right person to talk about that. I'll see this bill.
Thank you, sir.
Am I? Attention to that. And I am a big of friendship to all, malice to none. And this is something that has been with us from 1966, Bondo Bondo, 1966. And this is something that I think we really need to work more on, especially in dialogues and conversations like this. You never know what the diplomats are doing behind the door, and we cannot preempt them or sabotage through our comments. We keep these in mind, and having said that, I think the one way that was going on officials brought by the United Nations to meet some of our camp-related officials. And I think we need to have more like that. Invisibly build something like that. The other one, and here I really have to leave it to our Excellency Ambassador who was there, the Kunmin negotiation. I don't know whether we can squeeze information out of him, because there are things that can be said, there are things that cannot be said. And therefore, as far as we can get, it will help us a lot to maybe platform for those issues. And this takes us to the whole idea of hard power. Hard power, I think, is not at all consistent with friendship to all, malice to none, silence is golden. It is something that I think we need to avoid. Our budget priorities are just not there. And we are, in fact, doing the most now because of the Rohingya refugees. It's not just protecting the borders and facing incursions that we have never faced before, but also the environment collapsing. We do need to pay more attention to these before the platform we stand upon, Mati, Shonar, Bangar, Mati. Before that disappears, we need to do something to protect ourselves. And therefore, it is important that we, in my view, approach the whole issue that way. I do want to say that we need to emit to others, especially our ASEAN brothers and sisters, policymakers. We have to get out of our RNG, I don't know, addiction. And the only way we can do it, the only market we can find would have to be in Southeast Asia. We have to work on new export items that can be sold in Southeast Asia. We need to negotiate with them. And being silent about Rohingya, I think, in my view, and I'm just an amateur with diplomacy, but in my view, I think that helps clear the atmosphere for that kind of a discussion. And so I really think that the Bhashon Char is emitting that, yes, Bangladesh is doing something on its own. Now, of course, there'll be pro con to every side, every issue, but since in my record, 75,000 have gone there. I think there's something there that we must nourish, nurture, and especially get many of the international organizations to see it more from our point of view instead of the, what I call the stereotype international A mindset. What else can I say? I think I'm going to leave it there, but we do need to also push items. I think India was mentioned. We need to cultivate and in fact even promote India's projects in Southeast Asia. I think there's one with the Mekong and the, I think, Brahmaputra that needs to be pushed. I think the BCIM can be revived in some way, rekindled, and these will help build up that cooperative spirit that we need to address this issue. And it will not happen tonight, tomorrow, but unless we sow the seeds now, it could become difficult later. I do want to finish by just saying that my subtitle was It's Now or Never, because I'm looking at 2024. And 2024 was already riddled with some of the biggest puzzles we will face, even before the Gaza war broke out. There are so many elections, ours, of course. Let's keep that aside. There's one in India. There's going to be one in the United States. Going to be probably one in Great Britain. There's some of the heavyweights whose stand ripples to issues like the Rohingyas are going to be making decisions demoting the issues we are prioritizing. And I think somehow this must be factored into any analytical, scholarly discussions, and certainly in the diplomacy, but that's again, I'm a novice, just an onlooker on that. Let's go to the expert and who we are so privileged to have. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You want, okay, I think that's all from here. And then we'll be listening to the Honorable Chief Guest. Yes, yes. But there were some hands, I mean, you raised, but we can allow only two, just only two, and then we conclude. And then His Excellency Ambassador of China wanted to speak before, I mean, after the interventions of others and questions. So two questions, and then we'll give the floor to His Excellency the Ambassador. Yes, please.
So thank you, sir. I am Brigadier General Shams. I'm lead researcher working on Rohingya, Myanmar and Asian affairs with Center for Bangladesh and Global Affairs. So this Rohingya crisis is passing 6 years, and I don't know when it will terminate and the problem will be solved. But I think we need a roadmap to address this issue gradually. And I appreciate the role of China for this pilot project, but is there any subsequent steps to solve in total this crisis? Thank you.
Thank you. The second question, please.
So my name is Kazim Farooq Saned. I'm from IUB. I'm majoring in environmental science and minoring in global studies and governance. So my question is basically, I was thinking that everyone's focusing on repatriation. So I was thinking about the alternative, which is like settlement in third countries. So there are actually countries that are having a huge decline in working populations, right? So I was thinking that why not negotiate with those countries to like come to a middle ground where both parties can actually benefit? Or is there more technical issues that we need to worry about? So that's my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we give the floor to His Excellency the Ambassador of China. China has been referred to by many interventions. Please, Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and Honorable Foreign Secretary, Mr. Excellency, Mr. Momin. I was very much privileged to be invited to attend this seminar, and I'm, very glad we learned so much informative and guidance and the suggestions as to how we will view this issue and how we work together to move forward in terms of solving this issue. That's definitely a lot of people talk about the role of China. Definitely, that is a part of my work and very high in my agenda to work with Bangladesh and Myanmar to push forward to solve this issue. And I should say, China will play our role. China as the role is as a mediator and a facilitator. And we all know that the issue has to be solved between Bangladesh and Myanmar. But China as the friends to both Bangladesh and Myanmar, and both Bangladesh, Myanmar trust China. So at the request of Bangladesh and Myanmar, China standouts, we try to bring them together and to solve the issue. I should say, either Foreign Secretary or I see the full team of Myanmar wing of Foreign Ministry are here. They're also present. I should say they did a wonderful job. They have worked day and night for solving this issue. And since I arrived end of last year, I already see a lot of progress has been made in terms of solving this issue. And at least I see now there's a, consensus are building. The final solution is repatriation. There's no other way out. So gradually, I believe there's realization of the final solution by the all, sectors of Bangladesh. And I also see the sincerity, both from Bangladesh side or Myanmar, that they want to solve this issue. Then they want to have some project. So some number of the displaced people maybe go back to blockade states. And we do make some arrangements, and some real movements have been made, like go and see mission, come and talk missions, which I've never achieved before. But I also want to point out, it is a very difficult task. And as ambassador, I'm focused on operation. You mentioned about the Kunming meeting. We do have some understanding, but any understanding need to be materialized through workable, the workable plan, arrangement. And the difficult thing is, it's quite interesting. No one here mentioned about what status of these Rohingyas, of displaced people, even they're almost 1 million. When you have the good arrangement, we have a good understanding between Bangladesh and Myanmar, supported by China, you have to, you have to respect the willingness of this group of people, whether they're willing to go back. I also see the strong distrust between these displaced people and the Myanmar government. There's not a promise by Myanmar government as long if they go back, what sort of the conditions here could be treated, but they don't believe. And for these displaced people, they raise a lot of requests, not only citizenship. There are dozens of requests, something I should say very political ones. And we also look at the situation in Myanmar. Although they have a political will to take some back. But Myanmar is also in very difficult situation. Myanmar itself is victim. They have been sanctioned for many years by international community. They are right now in political sanction, economic embargoes. What it can offer is also limited. I can see a lot of gap between what Myanmar side can offer and request by these displaced people. So you have to find a solution that is realistic. And also, not only China, there is some role by international agencies, especially UNHCR and some other international agencies who managed the camps. So all their livelihood are maintained, supported by these United Nations agencies. They also play a role. And these international donors, and they keep saying the situation is not right for repatriation. So all this will come to affect the willingness of training for these displaced people. So I see quite a few people are supportive of this process, and many more elements they raise various requests. They put on all conditions before they could go back. So that's the reality. But I should say, I'm optimistic. In spite of these challenges, difficulties, we are very close to repatriation. But there are still some more efforts need to be done to bridge the gaps. And we also be mindful, there are some unexpected matters also, unexpected factors also matter, like weather. The cyclone sometimes plays a role, and the security situation, the war in Myanmar, in Rakhine states, they also affect, the willingness of these, the back by these displaced people. Anyway, we have to ensure their safety if they want to go back. So all this will be very complicated one. But anyway, that is my promise that China will continue to play our role, and we'll work along with Bangladesh side, and we'll play our role working on Myanmar side. So hopefully in the future, we can come out with a good arrangement. So we can make some number of the Rohingya people go back to Rakhine. Thank you.
Thank you indeed, Excellency, for your analysis of the situation, and above all, your stress on your being very optimistic, and also your promise of your efforts continuing to solve the repatriation problem. So thank you very much. So now we are going to give the floor to the Honorable Chief Guest of this session. His expressions. Oh, sorry. There are some questions remaining unanswered. So if anybody wants to. Our questions? I can put it. No. Battery.
Thank you. Ambassador Kausal Chokar, Chairman of Peace, Major General Sheikh Pasha Habibuddin, Director General of Peace, faculties of Peace, Excellencies, Chinese Ambassador, of course, distinguished speakers at today's seminar, friends from the media, and the colleagues from the Foreign Ministry, ladies and gentlemen, and my dear students. A very good evening to you all. I would like to thank BIS for arranging this seminar, and also the speakers they have chosen a very balanced mix from security centric perspective to academic perspective and to research perspective. So it's a quite a wide ranging views that we have heard, and also the questions and the preludes to the questions that also set context very rich, I must admit. Bangladesh has been facing this multifaceted Rohingya crisis for a long time. Of course, in recent times, October 2016 and August 2017, but even before that, we know that the Rohingyas, persecuted and sent from their own place. And now we are stuck with around 1.2 million Rohingyas who are staying at least for 6 years. And 30,000 newborn children are added to the total number. Now, if you go or look back in history, we have, special, I would say, consideration or empathy for persecuted people because of our own history of 1971 and before. And that's why, any people or any population persecuted anywhere in the world, Bangladesh is one of the first to condemn such and also express our solidarity. And that, of course, happened naturally in the case of the Rohingyas. Of course, now it has become a burden, or somebody mentioned a curse. But it is our, nature, I guess. And that's why, when we see the persecution in the Gaza Strip by the Israelis, perhaps Bangladesh is one of the, countries who have been consistently raising its voice in various international fora. Our Prime Minister has been doing it, and we have done all that is possible from our side. But of course, things are not moving in the right direction as we are seeing or watching the developments on a daily basis now. Therefore, of course, at the outset, I would also like to express our biggest concern and sympathy and condolences to all the innocent civilians, children and women who were killed and murdered in the recent times in Gaza, and also some are being killed in the West Bank. We don't hear much, but I was in Jordan last week, and the Jordanian Secretary General and others expressed their deep concern of further, escalation in the West Bank area. Despite numerous constraints and our past experience in repatriation, Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina decided, as I said, within the historical context, to give shelter temporarily to such a massive number of forcibly displaced Myanmar nationals. Of course, at the beginning, we didn't know that we'll end up hosting so many. But obviously, our heart went out for these persecuted people. And obviously, we saved in the process thousands, hundreds of thousands of innocent lives. And this singular gesture has been recognized by the international community, as the Honorable Prime Minister is now known as the mother of humanity. Distinguished presence, Bangladesh has been paying also a very high price for the problem, which was formulated, orchestrated, planned, or originated, executed, on all this in Myanmar. According to a study, Bangladesh now has to spend around $1.22 billion every year on the Rohingya response, if you include or compute all the costs involved, including deployment of security personnel, deployment of officials and the camp administration and everything. And this figure is of course growing with the increase of the population, inflation, and also the decline in foreign assistance. As our distinguished panelists mentioned, it's not even 50%. This year, I don't know, 43% of the pledge or requirement is now met. The Rohingya crisis has entailed tremendous strain on the infrastructure, water supply, agricultural outputs, livelihood of the host community, as well as on our social and economic stability, particularly in that region. It has caused a demographic imbalance with now Rohingyas outnumbering the host community in the Cox's Bazar area, and the increased economic vulnerabilities of the local community is very much visible. Consequently, the tension between the host community and the Rohingya is also increasing. Initially, of course, the host community was very, very sympathetic and supportive, but as years went by, we are now seeing a lot of strain. And the crisis, of course, also adversely impacted the biodiversity of Cox's Bazar, in particular the 6,800 acres of reserve forest where the Rohingyas are now sheltered. Many of the elephant roots were actually destroyed because of these settlements. Deforestation, soil erosion, and water pollution are among the environmental problems that have been observed in the area due to the high concentration of the Rohingyas in the camps. Respected audience, with the evolving humanitarian crisis around the globe, and it was mentioned, by distinguished speakers and also from the audience, it has become challenging to secure necessary funds for the Rohingya response, which is dwindling. For instance, due to the critical fund deficit this year, the WFP already reduced the monthly food ration from $12 in December to $8 from June 2023. So $8 per person per month. So you can calculate, what is the daily entitlement. Distinguished audience, various Rohingya miscreant groups, there are many groups now we come to know, whether it is ASA or ISO or whatever other outfits they call themselves, are actually active inside the camps, and often they engage in armed clashes with each other to basically take control of areas and individuals and the vulnerable persons to extort money and to engage in illegal business, including drug trafficking or human trafficking, and sometimes small arms trafficking. And these groups are not necessarily based on ideologies, but rather, on petty interests. And obviously, this is creating a big problem for the not only the camp security, but also beyond the camps. Bangladesh is, of course, committed to ensure the safety and security of their PMNs following international standards. Bangladesh government has engaged about 3,000 committed security personnel, besides the other security agencies, to improve the security situation inside the 33 camps in Cox's Bazar. Although a system of community policing involving Rohingya volunteers patrolling inside the camps at night, side by side with the security agencies, is in place. However, still, the security situation is deteriorating, and some numbers are mentioned, and I think compared to last year, this year numbers are already more, although we are not at the end of the year. Somebody or a couple of persons mentioned Bhashan Chowk, and so the whole idea of Bhashan Chowk, it also, of course, was built entirely by our own resources, was to help decongest the camps and also to reduce the risks. The Bhashan Chowk, initially there were a lot of negative propaganda or negative criticism about the viability of Bhasanchar having or hosting Rohingyas, but it was proved that there were no risks, and the total capacity is about 100,000. So far, only 33,000 plus minus are already there, so we can still move. But then again, if you compare the 1.1 or 1.2 million, then this 100,000 is only a fraction of that number. Distinguished presence, the prolongation of the stalemate in repatriation is leading this vulnerable population more frustrated and turning them more susceptible and vulnerable to unlawful activities and encouraging them to undertake ventures risking their lives. It can have greater ramifications on the sub-region or region and at the global levels. Only today, I think I read something like some boatload of Rohingya women and children were in Aceh province in Indonesia. And many of them are actually from our camps, although we need verification, but some of them also went from the Rakhine province, it seems. And this is a common story, we have been hearing for the last few years. A group of transnational human and drug traffickers are also targeting the Rohingya youth, women and children, and particularly for forced labor in different countries of Southeast Asia. Thailand we saw earlier, but Malaysia and Indonesia are also destinations. But most of the time they are stuck in the Andaman sea area, and then many of them we have to retrieve or rescue from the sea and bring them back to the camps. Another problem I think somebody mentioned was in a state of hopelessness or in a state of complete frustration where there is no light at the end of the tunnel. We all know that the 52% of the Rohingya population are under the age of 18. So this huge population, young population, if remain frustrated, then obviously they can be easy targets of recruiters or radicalizers or we don't want to see as the scenes in Gaza and West Bank that young boys girls are fighting the Israeli soldiers. Any protracted refugee situation will entail such eventualities. There was one small paragraph which I thought I will not speak, but since the professor from Dhaka University mentioned about connectivity, I think I should respond that there is a huge potential to engage Myanmar, and over the years, I must admit that we are not really interested to look towards our southeastern neighbors. We always look to the west, whether it was trade or investment or political overtures. As a result, we missed out. So therefore, there is a huge cost of non-cooperation. And whether it is BRI or Indo-Pacific Strategy or Belt or Road Initiative, there is a huge potential for win-win situation or models. And in Kunming, I can say this that we also discussed that we don't have any other political issues with Myanmar. Of course, the Rohingya were their problem, but once they cross the border, it has become our problem. But we have successfully, solved the problem of maritime delimitation of our territorial waters, and therefore, we could actually gain a lot through agricultural cooperation, through trade and investment. Whenever there is any crisis of any essential commodity, we see that we go to Myanmar for rice or onion or fish. Obviously, there are scope. Therefore, I fully agree and endorse, and we are working. But of course, Myanmar will also have to see the benefits over the years, they were not a good example of engagement. They maintained a policy of isolation for many years. So maybe they have some fear of the unknown, I don't know. But obviously they are missing out. But the tri-nation, highway, India, Myanmar, and Thailand, we have officially approached all of the countries that we would be interested to join the tri-national highway. Therefore, Rohingya issue is there. It's a big problem, complicated problem, but that should not deter us from exploring these other, engagements, which will create stakes. And once we have stakes, perhaps their behavior will also change, possibly. Bangladesh government has adopted measures to keep the Rohingya as particularly the children and youth engaged in productive activities inside the camps. Government, in collaboration with the UN agencies, are imparting education to the Rohingya children following Myanmar curriculum. Many of you know, through more than 6,000 learning centers, because this is, while our own children are studying, we have a responsibility to give some education to the Rohingya children, and it was also the appeal from the international community and various stakeholders. And we are also developing portable skills for the Rohingyas in the trades available in Rakhine and engaging Rohingyas as volunteers in humanitarian operations in a systematic and effective way. And these initiatives are helping them to practice their own culture, and it would help their reintegration when they return to the Rakhine state. So we are making them ready mentally, skill-wise, and profession-wise, and attitude-wise. In terms of having some livelihood, measures or livelihood experimentations, we are discussing with our development partners that perhaps in Bhashan Chor there will be more scope, because in Cox's Bazar camps it would be a little bit more complicated, because there is a host population, there is competition, there is the possibility of conflict of interest. But in Bhashan Chor there are no host community to speak of, and we are already doing some of these activities, and we are ready to experiment more pilots there. Distinguished audience, we should never forget or have any doubt in our mind, and also today's discussion is a good reflection, and I'm glad for that the sustainable repatriation of the Rohingya to Rakhine state is the ultimate solution to the crisis. Bangladesh is therefore working towards safe, dignified, voluntary, and sustainable return of the Rohingya to the Rakhine state. One student mentioned about third country resettlement programs, but the numbers are so huge that third country resettlement programs, while we encourage or even facilitate, but this is not going to solve our problem. Last year, Canada took like 69 people. This year, the Americans are taking maybe 100 plus, or so 100, 500, 5,000, 10,000, but it will not solve our problem, because every year 30,000 are being added. Symbolically, okay, fine, but and we have to be careful that whether it becomes somebody mentioned pull factor or magnet or even a push factor for the Myanmar junta. Therefore, the risks are also there, but we are not averse to the idea. But this is not going to be the main solution, obviously. Systematic disenfranchisement and frequent indiscriminate persecutions against the Rohingya by successive governments of Myanmar since the 1960s led to their continued influx. I mentioned on several waves they came. The most recent, of course, 2017. Distinguished guests, Bangladesh always sought a durable solution to the Rohingya crisis peacefully through negotiations with Myanmar. I like the term of strategic autonomy, and if we couple it with the friendship to all and malice to none, principle espoused by the father of the nation, I think we can see a kind of a pattern But the other points mentioned by the professor, I don't want to comment about Iron Fist and hard, stance. Bangladesh believes in soft diplomacy and also discussions and negotiations and mediation. Therefore, I will not elaborate on that anymore here. The two countries signed 3 instruments after the exodus in 2017 on repatriation. And we mentioned that, what are these instruments and, how they are working or not working, are they adequate or whether they are effective. I think, in general, I can comment that the repatriation, the agreements that were signed between Bangladesh and Myanmar are more or less, okay. But the taste of the pudding is in eating, and the implementation of these and the modalities that need to be developed for the repatriation to start. That is more difficult, and I'd just like to say that the political will has to be there. You can have as many agreements as possible, but if you don't have the necessary political will, then it would be difficult. That's why we were very happy. In fact, we requested everyone, India, Russia, US, or international community, other countries, China, Japan, Korea, ASEAN, to help us solve this problem. And China offered that they would, have this trilateral initiative as a kind of a chaperone to have our bilateral talks going in the right direction, and also act kind of a custodian. But that does not mean that other countries are not welcome. All the countries are welcome, and we constantly reach out to our other friends that it should not be China's bargain only. 2 attempts taken in 2018 and 2019 to start repatriation were not successful, as we know. And basically, the Rohingyas were unwilling to join the process. In the absence of a favorable situation, they have put up some conditions and lack of sufficient assurances about their security and sustainable livelihood opportunities by the Myanmar government was not there in earlier occasions. Then, of course, we had COVID for almost 2 years. There were no discussions, no engagements. And 1st of February 2021, in Myanmar, we know that the military junta took over, and it created more uncertainties for repatriation. But I remember the very next day, I requested the Chinese lead and the former ambassador and discussed that this should not derail our engagements. Myanmar, it's up to Myanmar people to decide what kind of government they will have, what kind of system they will have. But they are our neighbors, and we all know that you cannot choose your neighbors. It's given. So from the very beginning, we expressed our interest that we will discuss or keep on discussing repatriation, whoever is in charge in Myanmar. And at that time, it seemed that, the dispensation may end soon. But, it's already, almost 3 years, and the same thing is continuing. So with the benefit of hindsight, we can say that we decided the right way, that we had to have the dialogue and discussion. But of course, it didn't go very far. As you are aware, we are working with Myanmar to commence repatriation of the first batch of the pilot project returnees, and its success will be followed up by the return of successive batches following a roadmap. Somebody mentioned the word roadmap. Thank you very much. Of course, there has to be a roadmap. It cannot be just a one-off, operation of 1,000 or 2,000 people. And that was our understanding in Kunming, that we'll start the repatriation in the right earnest, and then we'll scale it up, and then we'll take a pause and evaluate. And then we draw up the, roadmap for the larger population. So that was the idea. But then again, after our return from Kunming, after some time, there was this cyclone Mocha that hampered our activities. But then we had actually successfully carried out, as the Chinese ambassador mentioned, the go and see visit, the come and talk visits, and these were all framed to boost the confidence of the Rohingyas, that a group of Rohingyas, along with some of our officials, went to visit, the Rakhine province, the transit center, where they will be taken in the initial camps or settlements. And then we proposed that another group of Myanmar officials will come and talk to these Rohingyas who are willing to go, so that if they have any questions, if there are any doubts, those should be cleared and the assurances should be given by Myanmar authority and not by Bangladesh or not by China, because at the end of the day, once they cross the border, we will not have control over these people. So we had these, discussions, and in fact, our assessment is the first round that the Rohingya population, they had some observations, some concerns, and some expectation. And one of that expectation is they would like to go back to the original villages from where they came. And Myanmar was initially not interested. They created some camps, or they call it model villages, look like camp. So obviously, if you are a Rohingya, you would not like to move from one camp to another camp. You would like to be as close as to their villages where their ancestors are buried, and they have their lifestyle, their economic activities. They're basically fishermen, and they're basically rice growing farmers. So these are their skills. That's what they've been doing. But now it seems that Myanmar is showing some interest that they may be going back to those some of those villages which are still there, because we all know that most of these villages are burnt out or other settlements were made. So the availability is also a big problem. And the latest team from Myanmar officials again came to Bangladesh on 31st of October about some additional facilities. We told them that, why don't you make some videos and then we can circulate it to other people, because then there will be more interest amongst the Rohingya population who are willing to go back. Safety and security, of course, would be the prime concern of the returnees. They have crossed the border because of the environment of insecurity and persecution. So that would be their first expectation. And during these briefings, the Myanmar officials have assured to arrange their safety and security in Rakhine State. However, we have seen some recent escalation in the last couple of weeks, and still going on. The safety and security situation is, a little bit going down. We are watching the mounting tensions in Rakhine State, as the military has been beefing up its forces in Rakhine for the past weeks, as the insurgent Arakan army, because Arakan army is an important factor. They control a big swath of land in Rakhine. So unless they are taken on board, these repatriation will not be successful or sustainable. And in the past, we have seen that Arakan army, also taking different kinds of decisions as far as the Rohingyas are concerned. We hope that the conflict will not further intensify, thwarting our efforts to repatriate. Now, improving the situation on the ground in the northern Rakhine and the smooth conduct of the repatriation and reintegration of the forcibly displaced persons are an enormous task. I think our Chinese ambassador friend will agree that initially the views that he expressed or shared with us, I see a change over the months. now he's realizing, appreciating the complexities more. It is very clear from his statement also. And of course, from our side, there is no lack of sincerity to pursue this. Support and encouragement of ASEAN mentioned today, UN agencies, friendly countries. I always talk about the Indians, the Japanese, the Koreans. With those, they have more chance to persuade Myanmar with whatever leverage they have. Myanmar is of course part of ASEAN, although currently they are, I think, suspended. And the international partners, are needed for this humongous task. Volunteers of ASEAN Center of Disaster Management, or AHA Center, UNHCR in particular, the mandate holder for not only hosting refugees or helping refugees or for humanitarian action, but also for repatriation. So they need to be involved, and other UN agencies like UNDP, WHO, UNICEF, and so on and so forth, and friendly countries would be allowed to work in the transit and villages of resettlement of the returnees, to give them confidence, a kind of a confidence builders, confidence boosters. We're not talking about monitoring, we're not talking about observers, but just confidence builders, and also civilians. That will be crucial. In our understanding, the Kunming consensus, they agreed. But unfortunately, they are still yet to sign a trilateral MOU, Myanmar, UNDP, and UNHCR, which would lay the foundation for UNHCR involvement in the other side of the border. And that will give a lot of confidence to the international community that this approach or this endeavor of Bangladesh is according to international standards and in a safe and secure environment with the dignified. They always mention, of course, the conducive environment. Now, the question of conducive environment and dignified return. These are subjective terms, and we can have debate. But I think we cannot wait also for indefinite period for the most ideal situation to emerge, for the most conducive situation to emerge. We have to work with what we have and then work our way up. While the current focus of the international community is to bring back normalcy in Myanmar, Bangladesh expects that their concerted efforts will also focus on addressing the Rohingya crisis. If you see the Security Council resolution or the General Assembly resolution, these are always focusing on other issues, which are important issues, but seldom on the repatriation. So Bangladesh mission in New York, in Geneva, they are working very hard, to put paragraphs on Rohingya, repatriation, because that is our focus. When democracy will come, or what kind of democracy will come in Myanmar, that is not our main goal or objective or priority. Our priority is to send these people back to Myanmar with whatever we have at the moment. Without ensuring the rights of the ethnic minorities of Myanmar, including the Rohingyas, peace, stability, and democracy in Myanmar will not be sustainable. It would be a gross mistake to solely focus on the political turmoil. We all collectively need to address the root causes of the conflicts, promote inclusive and sustainable development in Rakhine State, provide essential services, and create livelihood opportunities for the displaced person with their return. Unfortunately, increasing trade and investment relationships of some powerful countries, we have seen that Myanmar sometimes gets emboldened in their defiance. So we urge all those countries to rethink their economic and investment policies. Of course, there are some sanctions of few selected individuals or entities, but these will not have any binding impact. Distinguished presence, the question of international justice and accountability was mentioned, and we think that we have been supportive of all these things, whether it is in ICJ or ICC or IIM or the court in Argentina. Bangladesh is fully behind such actions. And we think that it would also act as an important confidence building measure for the sustainable repatriation of the Rohingya to their homes in Myanmar. Of course, if they see that some of the perpetrators are roaming around freely, their confidence would be very less. On the other hand, if they see that some justice is being dispensed, then their confidence will be boosted and they will have more incentive to go back. Therefore, while we are supporting all justice mechanisms, the Rohingyas also expect that they can see the result at the shortest possible time. But unfortunately, the very nature of legal proceeding is that it takes years, and Rohingyas don't have the luxury of waiting for that long. And our own patients are also thinning. Distinguished guests, we know various vested interest groups and anti-repatriation elements, including some of these groups that I mentioned among the Rohingyas, are active inside the camps for pursuing their interests and benefits. And we have seen earlier the killing of Mohibullah. Mohibullah was one of the leaders of the Rohingya community who was in favor of repatriation, and so he was eliminated. So obviously, those forces are also working hard so that we fail. The standard or definition, as I mentioned, conducive environment or dignified return are relative. The large-scale forced displacement of Rohingyas from Rakhine State took place under the so-called democratic government in Myanmar. Somebody mentioned NUG. Of course, it would be nice to take their words for them, but it was in a different dispensation. But during their time, the whole thing unfolded. So we are carefully watching their pronouncements, and obviously there's a huge trust deficit there. Demand for restoring their citizenship as a precondition for repatriation is also not perhaps fully justified, because that could be a non-starter in this process. It is an internal legal affair for Myanmar, and the Rohingyas had no citizenship right during their forced displacement in Bangladesh in 2016 and 17. Their expectation of having citizenship restored can only be materialized after returning to Myanmar. So they cannot be handed out, passports of Myanmar if they want that. Then we are not going anywhere. However, announcement of some sort of pathway to citizenship as per the Kofi Annan Commission reports recommendations could be a good start. So we have been pushing them to reassure their people on this. We will seek constructive engagement of all concerned to let the Rohingyas decide themselves about joining the repatriation initiative. Right to live in their own place is a basic right, and we should work together to facilitate that. We will discourage negative propaganda undertaken from any quarter to demoralize or demotivate the Rohingyas for this repatriation initiative that we are undertaking. Now, if I would just touch some of, I think most of the questions have been answered through my presentation. Ambassador Hannan's point, how quick can we start, or whether there is a small window or repatriation now or never. I don't think we have reached that point, because we are trying in right earnest or with good faith. And as the Chinese ambassador finished his statement that he is hopeful, I am also hopeful, because despair can actually totally destroy our possibilities. Dr. Zahid Khan's, it was already mentioned that iron fist under the velvet glove. So these are good things, maybe theoretical, but for Bangladesh, these are not necessarily practical options. regional key players, of course, we are trying to involve them. Extra-regional and the Burma Act, I'm not so sure. Security Council passed resolution, General Assembly passes resolution every year, this year also in the third committee. But as we all know that General Assembly resolutions have no teeth. And the Security Council in the current context of the crisis in Ukraine or Gaza, we have seen how handicapped or hamstrung it is. And the NUJ, again, my personal, not so hopeful. Then talking about the connectivity already mentioned. Tramocal friend repatriation agreement, what problem? As I mentioned, there's no problem with the agreements or the arrangements, but it is the problem of maybe trust deficit or problem of political will. One student from the International Relations Department mentioned that whether it's diplomatic shortcomings, I obviously are necessary. Will not agree with that. During my 4 years presence in New York, we really worked overtime to keep this issue alive, keep this issue known, and not only at the UN. We organized many events with the civil society, and I went to different universities. I went to different states also for various events, awareness-raising events, so that we wanted to not only keep it in the intergovernmental circuits, but also to the academia, to students. I interacted with many students in many universities in the US on this issue, and of course, every year Bangladesh is holding a major side event during the United Nations General Assembly, along with other member states, and our Prime Minister always attends that. And the whole idea is there are so many crises in the world today that we cannot afford that Rohingya crisis slides, and then we have a bigger humanitarian disaster in our hand. Brigadier General Shams mentioned roadmap, and of course, without roadmap, it's a one-off solution is not in our mind also. So thank you very much. I don't know how much I could respond to the question, and I thank Professor Imtiaz for giving me the cover that I can keep the private part to myself, because some things, unless they are properly cooked, should not be seen by the public. But we are trying hard, I can assure you. And China is very sincere, and other countries are also we're trying to rope them in, and hopefully, we should see some progress in our endeavors. But the core issue is voluntariness of these people to go back, and also a secure environment. And I'm not using the conducive environment term, because conducive can vary, but at least it has to be secure. And then, of course, livelihood issues or other issues, right to education, right to healthcare. I mean, if you are a Rohingya and if you are in the camps in Bangladesh, you will not make a choice to go back unless you have at least a plus situation or a plus situation. You will not end up going to a place with more insecurity or lesser facilities. So that is for sure. So again, thank you very much, please, for this timely seminar. We should have this more. And to my friends from the universities, if you call me, if you ask me, I can go to the university and I can also discuss these issues with all of you. So you also have a responsibility, the students of IR or other departments, to engage the policymakers. This is a two-way traffic, and the professors can be the facilitators. So I'd love to engage with our students, all universities. I would like to again thank these and also all the distinguished personalities present here for giving time and for their very valuable comments. Joy Bangla, Joy Bangla.
Thank you, sir, indeed. We have come to the concluding part of this seminar, but there is nothing much left to say because you have made such a great contribution to your remarks that all questions that were asked have been answered. In fact, I think that we made a mistake that we gave you the floor at the end. We should have given you the floor at the beginning. And there would not have been so many questions. Thank you indeed, and our deep appreciation for your valuable time and your hands-on experience and the knowledge that you have shared with us. Of course, you are completely engaged, fully engaged towards the goal that which we are advancing in regard to this problem. And in fact, nothing actually to say, but to thank our distinguished presenters and experts, Major General Retired Naim Ashfaq Chaudhary, and Professor Interior Sen, and our own BIISS presenter. Thank you all actually for covering intellectually and also in pragmatic terms. You have explained well, and I particularly thank His Excellency Ambassador of China for making intervention and also giving us confidence that the efforts are on and our friends, international friends are there, engaged with us towards solving this problem, which has been dragging on for years. But we have to be patient. In fact, the problem is a complex problem, including in the evolving and very shifting security landscape, and also in the context of the complexities involved in the repatriation process. Because it is not merely a kind of bureaucratic process. Thank you indeed, and we particularly thank our distinguished participants today, and our former colleagues, ambassadors, and our friends and colleagues from different ministries, departments, and also from international community organizations. Many of them are here and share their views. And I particularly thank my colleagues in the BIISS who have made a lot of preparations in a very short period of time. Without whose preparation and sincere efforts, this would not have been arranged so quickly in a short notice. And thank you all. I also thank the staff who have worked quietly in preparation and helped us. And thank you indeed, sir. Thank you again. Thank you all. Thank you.
Distinguished audience, thank you.
I'm taking the microphone again, just for 1 minute. We have an invitation from the Foreign Office Spouses Association, POSA. They are organizing a grand event, an exhibition, a day-long program in the Foreign Service Academy tomorrow.
No, Friday.
Oh, on Friday, sorry. On Friday, it starts at 10 o'clock in the morning and continues up till 8 p.m. In the evening. So please, all of you, everybody, including your spouses, the ladies, because this is a ladies' program.
Foreign embassies are participating.
Foreign
Chinese
embassies
embassies also.
and Excellency, everybody is invited, and also all of us, I mean, our colleagues from BIISS with their committee, with their spouses, and please come. Thank you.
They should not forget to take the wallet.
Thank you again.